All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on to part 3. We're going to do decimals to percents and percents to decimals in the same because they're pretty simple and they're very opposite of one another. Decimals to percentages. So we have a decimal point. We want to turn it into a percent. Very simple. We know percent, the word percent means out of 100. So when we're doing things with percentages, we're always using the number 100 somehow. In this case, to turn a decimal into a percent, we are going to multiply by 100. Okay? So we have a decimal point. We want to turn it into a percentage. Now sometimes we have decimals that are already percentages. Like we have a percentage that has a decimal in it. That's okay. If it doesn't tell us to turn it into a percentage, then we don't need to. But today that's what we're doing. We're multiplying by 100 to turn our decimal into our percent. So essentially we can do that two ways. We can either use our calculator or we can move the decimal point two places because we're dealing with the number 100, 2 zeros, so 2 places. And since we're multiplying, we're going to be getting a greater value. So we're moving it 2 places to the right. All right. So in this example here, we have 2.36. We want to turn that into a percent. So we simply move the decimal 2 places to the right to get 236%. In this example, we have a placeholder 0 here, or a 0. That 0 does have value, so we can't just skip it. Our decimal point is here. So in this case, they have shown how you would use a calculator. So you would take 0.03 times 100 to get 3. We could also move that decimal twice to the right, and notice it would end up after the 3, so 3%. Now, when we're going from percentages to decimals, we're going to do the opposite. So we have a percent sign, and it says turn that percentage into a decimal. So it's the opposite as above. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Divide by 100. Very good. So we're going to divide by 100. So again, it's the exact opposite. We're still moving it 2 places, but this time we're going to move it 2 places to the left. Now, we have to be careful in both of these cases for those placeholder zeros. If we move it and there's no number there, then we can add a 0. Okay, so don't forget those because that changes the value of your number. So in our first example, we have 32%. We have an invisible decimal at the end of that number. We move it 2 places to the left or divide it by 100, and there's the decimal form of 32%. This example shows you how you would use a calculator. So I would take 100%, 100 divided by 100, because that's what we're doing when we move the decimal 2 places to the left, and I would get 1. Okay, so this is actually the decimal form of 100%. And you're like, but there's no decimal. But we're turning it into a smaller value. We're dividing it by 100. So it's okay if there's no decimal in your final answer, as long as it is taking that percentage and dividing by 100. So your next task is to grab your worksheet. You're going to do parts 3 and 4, because we just went over 3 and 4 on our notes. Again, make sure those placeholder zeros get there. So for example, in this problem right here, if I move it 2 to the right, I need to put a 0 there. So guess what my percentage is going to be? Not 5, but 50.